It's now my honor to call up Gabriel to offer his eulogy for his dad. We good? Yes. To my niece, Layla, I've been working on eulogies longer than I care to admit. Death is terrifying to me, and it's my secret fear has always been of being alone. To cope with this, I would write and consider loss and consider what loss would be to me, and it would help. But in Grace Hospital on Tuesday when my father died, the first question asked was, what am I supposed to tell Layla when she asks for Zeta? In that moment, I threw out everything I had ever wanted and planned to say here. I completely changed approach because in that moment, I realized that I hadn't lost anything. My experience of time and my experience of life with my father ended on Tuesday at 10:01 p.m. Yeah, but I have lost nothing. But you, Layla, you have lost something. You've lost someone, a grandfather. It's a role we associate with wisdom and sagely advice. The word itself commands respect and evokes thoughts of foundations, strength, and the keepers of knowledge over time. You should have two. You deserve two. You won't have two. We are left now today hoping so much that you might just retain some memory, something, anything, which you can hold on to as a memory of your loving Zeta. Because you truly meant everything to him. One day you'll read this. One day you'll understand. I want you to know who your Zeta was and what he wanted to be for you. Layla, he truly loved you. And to you, I am so sorry for your loss. Your Zeta, our dad, was difficult, complex, and confusing. Though it wasn't always immediately apparent, those who knew our dad knew that to speak to him was to confront a wall of noise. Every word he spoke had to cut through his entire life experience, like radio waves through the air, or boats crossing the ocean. He struggled with letting things go, so he just carried everything with him. But the more he hung on to the bad and the sad things, the bigger they got. Too often his emotions went unexpressed. His trauma and conflicts went unresolved. And even as an adult, he still acutely felt every single childhood pain. He dwelled on these things and more. And Layla, there was a lot. Before he knew it, those radio waves and boats had to traverse some pretty awful storms. And sometimes, his words got lost. Sometimes they were too quiet. And sometimes all you could hear was the thunder, hail, and wind. There was a tempest that raged in our father's mind. And even if you couldn't hear it, for him it was ever present. And it grew. He told me that growing up, he was treated and felt like he was treated by his parents as a memento, a symbol, an embodiment of a particular time. It's cruel and unfair that through absolutely no fault of their own, your great-grandparents were not able to see their son as the embodiment of liberation, perseverance, and a future. Instead, they were only able to see him as the embodiment of Auschwitz, gas chambers, and 17 million lost. It's cruel and unfair that through absolutely no fault of his own, our father resented this treatment and couldn't let it grow. Couldn't let it go. And the storm grew. While his mother was alive, I recall overhearing his side of an argument they had over the phone. I don't remember much of it, just him shouting through tears, which didn't happen often, the tears, slamming the receiver down and not coming out of his room for some time after. The words he had shouted were, "All I ever wanted to hear was you say you love me." And the storm grew. These things plagued our father's every moment, and most of his friends and people who knew him had at some point, even several points, unfortunately witnessed his storm manifest into some cruel, mean, and really stupid actions. But that was absolutely not who our father was. That was just your Zeta struggling in his storm. Over the past several years, he found the struggle got harder, and in turn no one felt that worse than your Baba. But he always fought, and we did our best to remember that 9 times out of 10, Layla, he won. Let's acknowledge the 1. Let's remember the 9. Layla, your Zeta would have been your endless source of embarrassment. He was without question one of the most embarrassing people in the world. This I know. It doesn't matter what you think about your mom and dad, you're wrong, kid, let me tell you. Long before Lululemon was printing empowering mantra ideas on the sides of crappy water bottles, your Zeta had, to our dismay, developed his own personal mantra. The worst they can say is no. A statement which, through our father's rigorous ad nauseum testing, has been proven absolutely false. And proven false often. Likewise, the phrase, "Would you take a quarter?" has indeed lost us more than it has gained, in dignity and deals. It's even resulted in a handful of bannings. Your Baba and Zeta were told not to be obnoxious at your mother's ringgit games. But your Zeta would go to Raber's Gloves, find the largest, loudest clapping mitts available, big solid leather things probably designed for the delinquent moose wrangling department at the RCMP. He'd go to your mother's games with your Baba, and together they became the most obnoxious, rowdy ringgit hooligans. Bailey would say, "Dad, don't piss off the referees." Dad would say, "What's the worst they're gonna say? Stop." And before you knew it, your Baba and Zeta were being ejected out of rural Manitoban ice rinks, where they would then proceed to pound on the windows from the outside. Layla, your mother was adopted. Her athleticism comes from a species of family tree so rare and exotic that to this family it is alien. Our dad made it to every single one of her sports things that he could. He watched Bailey like a supernatural phenomenon, and that's exactly what she was to him. Case in point. On a family trip to the Bahamas years ago, we all went snorkeling. Sort of. Your Zeta found the goggles quite disorienting as he was unable to wear his glasses with them. The big, bitey mouthpiece didn't help either, as it wasn't attached properly, so swung with every step, whacking him repeatedly in the nose. And the flippers. Big ones, seemingly made out of the same super buoyant material life jackets are. There was your Zeta, goose-stepping towards the ocean. The very first wave took the flippers skyward, Zeta and all. Every consequent wave exhibited to us a new part of our beloved father. It was like watching a slideshow of someone trying to replicate all John Travolta's Saturday Night Fever moves, all at once, in a hamster wheel. No one could help because the laughter across the packed beach was too severe. I'm sure many were at risk of hypoxia. 2 strangers managed to crawl over in hysterics to help him, but our father, your Zeta, was not a petite boy. In short order, they seemed to take the Bee Gees' message to heart. You should be dancing. And then there were 3. All rolling, flipping, grabbing at each other like a Looney Tunes fight cloud. As one got up, another tried to use them as support, and another wave would hit. At one point, when I thought they were nearing success, they were all 3 taken out by a well-timed wave like 3 oddly shaped bowling pins. And there was my father's flipper again, waving at us like the Queen. It was absolute pandemonium in barely ankle-deep water. When our dad finally got up and took the barely half step out of the ocean that 10 minutes ago he had taken into the ocean, he waved to the crowd on the beach and exclaimed, "Thank you, I'll be here all week." My son, the doctor, my father, the snorkeler. He viewed Bailey's sports prowess with honor, pride, and heaps of envy and awe. He was her biggest fan, and he would have been yours too. Your Zeta spent a few weeks in hospital this spring, and while he was there, he told me he was frightened. Not of death, not of dying, but of losing his autonomy, his independence, and his capabilities. I asked him what about it worried him, and his response was something which might surprise a lot of people. I recorded the conversation, so I can quote directly from that. I am scared to admit to Mum that there are things I can't do. She will feel obligated to do what's in her nature, become a caregiver, and lose track of herself completely. Over the years, I watched her do it for her family. I've watched her do it for her friends. If she sees the necessity, she will shift into that role. And I'm telling you, more than anyone else, she deserves a break. So we fight. I can't clear out the office. I know that. But so long as I put it off, she can sew and paint in her anger. And as long as we keep fighting about these sort of things, I'm just a pain in the ass and not a burden to her. I looked at my dad after a short moment and said, "Dad, that is the most beautiful, misguided, bullshit logic I've ever heard." He tried so hard. He tried so hard to be what the people around him needed. And while he often got it wrong, the words and thoughts he was sending through that storm originated from such a heartfelt and genuine love that it is frankly almost sickening. Your Zeta would have done anything for you. Anything. And always. One day you'll read this. One day you'll understand. I want you to know who your Zeta was and what he wished he could be for you. He truly loved you, Layla. And I am so sorry for your loss, and I truly hope you remember him.